If we know that showing up and doing a small task over and over and over again changes you from the inside out, if we know that showing up and doing something multiple times over the course of, I don't know, some people say 21 days, maybe months, if we know that it triggers something in you to put you on autopilot so that you are doing tasks without thinking about it, and things that used to feel hard to you now feel easy. The question is, what do we have to do to encourage ourselves to stick with it? I feel like I knew how valuable habits were, but it's been this Flylady, the stuff that has really shown me the ability that we have to change and to grow into our goals. You guys, lately it's just been kind of a lot going on over here in my neck of the woods. And typically in the past, whenever things kind of got me down, whenever I felt like the world was on my shoulders and things were just really hard, typically housekeeping would be one of those things that would be the first thing to go. I kind of go into like this survival mode where I just do the things that are the most important to me, which include taking care of my children, making sure that they're fed and bathed, and like if my kids are good, then everything else can easily go out the window when I'm feeling not in the best mood. And so we've been kind of going through a season of that here in my home, and I think I really can see the power of habits at this point. And it's really been this situation that has highlighted to me the fact that you can change yourself from the inside out, because that's something that I haven't let go of. My homekeeping habits, that's something that I continue to work through and that I continue to do. And, you know, Flylady says it's like putting your home on autopilot. And that's what it truly feels like. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys don't ever get the perception that I'm the perfect homekeeper, that everything is just always in place and immaculate. That's not my case. But like I said, I have a home that I feel happy with, and it's good enough for me to feel comfortable. And so I want to talk about this today because I feel like sometimes when we are working on new habits or working on new goals, sometimes we have this ability to undermine the small steps that we take as we move toward our goal. Especially if we are taking steps and we can't quite see the fruit of what we're striving for, and we can't quite see how it's actually getting us closer. And one thing that I've picked up and learned on this Flylady journey is, you guys, habits matter. Setting your routines matter, even if you just don't actually feel like they're making a difference today. Showing up for your habits is essentially laying roots, if you will. Let's just imagine that we have a plant and a beautiful flower, and you know that under the ground, we're nurturing and we're growing those roots. And following through on your habits, to me, is kind of like roots that you are growing and firmly attaching yourself to this world, if you will. And even though in the beginning you can't see where they're gonna get you, or if you feel like your habits are not making a difference, let me tell you, based on my experience, they truly, truly do. So it's just been very cool to kind of see myself kind of go in this autopilot mode, and things that I wasn't doing 10 months ago. It's just weird how like now those things just feel so natural. And so if you are kind of struggling with your Flylady journey, or maybe you're at the beginning and you feel like, I'm following through on these habits, I'm following through on these routines, and they're not making a difference, this video is going to be for you, because I'm going to talk about some mindset shifts that I had to make in order to persistently show up to my Flylady stuff. And so maybe this could be a helpful thing for you. And then also for people who start the Flylady system or any type of cleaning system and you find that after some time you just kind of throw in the towel, this is also a good video for you, because I want to just make the argument that even when you feel like the little things that you're doing are not making a difference, they really are, and they are helping you grow and evolve and become someone that shows up. For those of you that are new to my channel, my name is Flylady, and I like to talk about my Flylady journey, and I also like to just talk about gentle, peaceful homemaking. When I was a mom of 4, I am still a mom of 4, I don't know why I say it like that, but when I newly became a mom of 4, I was just really on the struggle boat when it came to homekeeping, and I found that I was trying to get it all done and do, what I saw everyone else doing and what I saw in all the YouTube videos, and it just got to a point in my life where that just was not working for me anymore. My life was too crazy, my life was too hectic, and I had too many responsibilities pulling me every direction, and that whole attitude of let me get it all done just to burn myself out, it wasn't productive, and it just wasn't taking me very far. And then I started my Flylady journey, where I learned to have grace and compassion for myself, where I've learned how to create realistic habits and show up. And it's just incredible that, like I said, my home is not perfect, but it's in the best condition that it's ever been, and I'm really happy with it. And I truly feel confident that if there's anything that I feel like is not up to my standard or anything that I want to change, like I feel like I have the skills to handle it and get it done without getting overwhelmed and without that frustration and overwhelm that I used to struggle with in the past. So I just like to talk about that on this channel. And one disclaimer that I like to add in every video is that I know that what I talk about is not for everyone. When I make these videos, I'm talking to one specific person, which is myself, before I started my Flylady journey. And so if you find that this advice does not resonate with you, this might not be the channel for you. And so not only do I talk to myself, but people who are kind of in the same wavelength as me, or people who understand what I'm talking about and who are not being represented and not being spoken to in the whole cleaning space. Like, they're just having a hard time finding something that works. And so by me sharing my story, I hope that those people who just feel like they're having a hard time finding something that works for them, maybe you can try it the peaceful, gentle homekeeping way. So if we know that showing up and doing a small task over and over and over again changes you from the inside out, if we know that showing up and doing something multiple times over the course of, I don't know, some people say 21 days, maybe months, if we know that it triggers something in you to put you on autopilot so that you are doing tasks without thinking about it, and things that used to feel hard to you now feel easy, the question is, what do we have to do to encourage ourselves to stick with it long enough for it to become a habit? Like I said, on my Flylady journey, that is one thing that I have really learned the art of doing with homekeeping, and that I'm trying to apply to other areas of my life. So the number one tip that I have, if you are trying to create routines and goals and habits that you can truly stick with long enough for them to become habit and long enough for them to be put on autopilot, is to pick realistic goals. Come in. Hi. I'm recording a video.
Okay.
All right, see ya. Okay, I forgot where I was. I was saying that if we know that showing up and doing something over the course of 21 days or a couple of months or however long is what it takes to transition it from being something that's difficult for us, a burden, to something that feels effortless, then the question becomes, what do we have to do to be able to stick it out, to be able to just show up for the long haul. And these are the things that I've picked up on my Flylady journey that has really helped me be able to stick with my routines long enough for them to become habits. And like I said, there's so many benefits of just creating the habit, doing the foundational work, creating the roots, so that you can see the fruits of good habits. That's, to me, has just been the easiest way to manage the homekeeping thing. So number one, you want to make your goals as realistic as possible. I feel like when I used to make goals before Flylady, I never really thought about, is this realistic to maintain for the long haul? Like, I would just be like, this is what I want to accomplish. I would set some deadline, maybe not too ridiculous. Maybe I would have like a deadline that was a couple of weeks out. And then I would then decide how to chunk my work down, or how to break up things so that I would be able to accomplish whatever I wanted to accomplish before that deadline. And I think the reason that I approach this is because maybe this is the skill that I picked up in school, right? And that's how I did it. So whatever it took for me to be able to complete the mission by the deadline. And so approaching your goals like that is great when you have a deadline, or if you have whenever you have a deadline, that works, because it's like, it doesn't matter how intense your goals are or your routine is. It doesn't matter how hard you work. Typically, it's very easy to stick it out when you know that it will end. You know that this is just for a short amount of time, right? But what do you do when you're actually in the process of creating a habit? Because ideally, if you're trying to create a habit, which I argue is the easiest way to approach this homekeeping thing, there is no deadline. There is no let me endure until I reach my goal, because the idea is to create the habit, make your life easier, and to stick with the habit, ideally for the rest of your life, until you don't need it or it doesn't serve you anymore. And so this whole idea of, here's my deadline, let me divide up everything, no matter how hard it is, it doesn't work anymore. And what I've learned is, if you want to do the work and create the roots and the foundation of your habits, you have to think about something that you can stick with for the long haul. So it's no longer based off of your deadline. It's based off of you. Where are you at this time in your life? What's going on? And what can you reasonably stick to day in and day out? And so that is one thing that I really picked up and learned how to do on my Flylady system. When I ditched this whole trying to achieve results within a certain timeline, and just being like, I have time, let's just work on it, let's just show up day after day, I feel like I really had to let go of this expectation of myself that I should just be able to work like a workhorse, which I can when the time is necessary. But like I said, if it's something that you're trying to stick with and build with for the rest of your life, it's just not realistic anymore. So when I used to disregard the need for creating realistic goals, the biggest thing that would happen to me is that I would just get overwhelmed. Like, maybe I could be strong for that first 1 or 2 days, maybe the first week, maybe the first 2 weeks, but then something would come along, whether it be an emotional thing, whether it be an interruption in my schedule, whether it be I'm just plain tired and I don't want to do this anymore and I'm not feeling it. And then that would just kind of make me feel overwhelmed, and it would knock me off of my game, and then I wouldn't want to continue anymore. And then that would be the end of that. And so now that I have more realistic routines, anytime something comes up and I'm like, I really don't want to do this right now, I have the ability to always fall back on, well, it's only 10 minutes. It's not going to kill you. Like, it's only 15 minutes. It's not going to kill you. It's only 2 things. Just go do it and get it over with. It's like, now I have provided myself with the tools that I need to just stick with something, and being able to say that it's easy and it's not that hard to do, so get up and go do it. And so that's what I want to offer to you guys, is if you find that you are not taking into consideration your feelings, I know for me, if I would have heard this before I started Flylady, I'd be like, commit to the mission, whatever it takes, because that's how I used to be. But now I'm just like, cleaning is not my priority anymore. Like, my mission is to be present with my kids and work on my things that I'm excited and passionate about, and homekeeping is just something in the background. And so I'm not trying to give all that energy to something that I don't even care about that much. I just need my home to be comfortable enough, and I just need it to be like a good environment for my kids and not distracting. But homekeeping is not my world, so I do not have to give it that same level of intensity that I would say like a school project or a presentation or something, a deadline at work. I do not have to give it that same intensity. So like I said, I find that having realistic goals, on the other hand, they just help me be able to show up for the long haul, and I can say, oh, okay, it's not that big of a deal. That's easy. That's something I can really do. And what you'll find is that when you start that way and you build the roots of those habits, that you can build off of what you've started. So if you started only being able to vacuum for 10 minutes, maybe in a month's time, you can vacuum for 15 and vacuum for 20. Like, the idea is to make it so easy that you can talk yourself into doing it in most conditions. And so once that feels easy, then you crank it up a little bit, and you just crank it. And each time you crank it up, it should still feel easy, which if you're showing up and you're doing it day after day after day, you are growing. And so things that were once challenging for you, as you're growing, will become less and less challenging. I don't know if that makes any sense. To me, it does in my mind, but if you guys have questions about that, then go ahead and leave a comment. So the next thing that I suggest thinking about whenever you are trying to commit to sticking with something for the long haul is, I would try not to look at the quality of your work as much as the quantity. So let me paint this with an example. Let's say, for example, you're doing your morning routine. So for me, my morning routine is to make my bed, pick up some hotspots. And so for those of you that are new to the Flylady system, hotspots are just these areas in your home where your family predictably drops crap, and then you just set a time every day to pick it up. If you do it every day, it doesn't ever have a chance to get out of control. And then I swap out the dishes, don't throw in a load of laundry. And let's say I've done that, but my house still looks horribly, which if you are starting your Flylady journey and you haven't had a chance to do your zone cleaning and decluttering and all that, it will. So for me, back in the days, I could easily look at my 4-item morning routine and be like, it's not enough. Like, do you see the rest of this house? I'm nowhere near my goal. And instead of give myself a back for handling the hardest things that I struggle with, and showing up and doing those first and putting the priority on that, I would beat myself up for all the little petty things around me that were not done yet. And I would not be able to see the big picture that that's okay. Like, we're slowly going to make our way and be able to handle these things. And so I would easily fall back into that binge cleaning cycle. Well, I could have easily fallen into that binge cleaning cycle, and then I would have worn myself out, and then I wouldn't have been able to show up for those difficult things the next day. And so I want you to try to not be so focused on having the clean house today, because I promise you that if you put your attention instead on showing up, building the habits, and planting your roots into the ground, home will be the natural consequence of a person who has great habits. And so if you build the habits, regardless of what your environment will look like, once your habits have become ingrained enough into you, then it's like the rest of everything else will fall into place. And sometimes it's very easy to get discouraged when everything is not in place. Like things still look like a train wreck, and it's hard to acknowledge the real work that's going on, which is the work of becoming the kind of person who shows up to do that laundry every day, who shows up to work on those dishes 2 to 3 times a day, who shows up to tackle clutter before it has a chance to explode. And it's like, if you do that, I promise that everything else will flow out from you. Oh, becoming the type of person who declutters most days a week, your home is going to come together. And so don't be discouraged if you don't see the fruit of that when you're first starting. In fact, even if it takes months, just realize that you're doing some below the surface work, and you will reap the rewards of that in time. So it's not about quality when you're first starting. And by quality, I mean, it's not about, are you getting the end results today? It's about, are you showing up enough time? Are you putting in the number of show ups? Wait, what am I trying to say? Are you putting in the repetition? Are you showing up enough to create the habits? Because in due time, like I said, the habits will take over. And then once you have a solid foundation of habits, then you have something that you can build off of. Then you have routines and habits that you can grow from, and you can build off of that. But it's like, it's very hard to grow and to build anything if you don't have a foundation. And for the sake of this video, your foundation is your good habits that make your life easier. So that's number 2. If you want to stick with something for the long haul, focus on the repetition, focus on showing up, and don't be focused so much on what your house looks like today, because if you become the type of person who shows up, everything else will be a reflection of that. But it takes time, okay? The third tip that I want to have is, don't beat yourself up for not doing things perfectly. I know that is something that's very hard for me. It is hard for me to show up somewhere if I don't feel a certain level of confidence that I can do a great job, that I can finish the checklist, that I can perform this to the standard that it needs to be performed. And doing my Flylady stuff has really opened my eyes to the fact that that's what I struggled with. And that is actually what was holding me back from not only the homekeeping stuff, but so many things in life. It's kind of like there's this force field around you, and it prevents you from making progress and from doing things that can help you out so much if you feel like you can't do it to a certain standard the first time. And it's like, what that little force field doesn't tell you is that it's okay to suck at stuff. Like, even if you try something and you find that it's not up to your standard, it's okay to work on projects for multiple days at a time. It is okay to start something and then come back and finish it in 3 days, or come back and finish it in a couple of days from now. Like, it is going to be okay to pick up a vacuum and do a horrible job. It is better to do something, not get as far as you want it to go, and then pick up where you left off again. And so I don't know where this came from, and I'm so glad that that is something that I can see now in my life, and I can see how it affects me. But that will be something that will hold you back. And an example could be, maybe you need to declutter a room, and in your mind you're like, well, I can't declutter everything today, it's just too big. I need to make sure I have a whole Saturday where I can work on it. And so it's like, you do that, and then maybe that Saturday doesn't work off, and you keep pushing stuff off and procrastinating because you just don't feel like you have the right time to do it. And what I've learned is that right time, it will never come. And if it does, it doesn't come often enough to get the things done that you need to do. And so one thing that I really had to work on was breaking that chain, breaking that force field that told me things had to be done right. And I had to just start working with what I have. No, I can't declutter this whole room today, but I have 15 minutes. babies are sleeping right now. Let me just go ahead and tackle this for 15 minutes. No, I don't have enough time to vacuum this whole house immaculately from top to bottom, but I have 10 minutes. Let's see how far I can get this vacuum in 10 minutes. And being able to stop looking at what I don't have, stop looking at, oh, this is not done properly, this is not done correctly, I didn't do it right, and being able to be like, well, this is what I do have, let me just work with what I do have, even though it's not going to get me to my end goal, at least I'm moving forward. That has just been by far way more productive, and it's really helped me stick with building my habits, because in order to build the habits, you don't have to do it the right way, if you will. Like, in order to build the habit of being someone who shows up to vacuum every week, there is nothing in the books that say you have to vacuum perfectly. In fact, on Flylady, we just do the 10 minutes, and then we build off of that, over time. For me, not everybody else. For me, I don't know what everybody else is doing, but for me, I build off of that. Once I can be the kind of person that vacuums for 10 minutes, then it doesn't feel like a big deal to do it for 11 minutes, to finish that corner over there, to do it for 12 because I missed that room. And now, I don't vacuum my home perfectly, but now I can, if I need to, or if I feel the need to, I can extend myself a little more without feeling overwhelmed. But it's in order to be able to extend yourself, you have to have the habit of being able to show up first and to feel good about that, and to not let that overwhelm you. And so if you want to stick with things for the long haul, shed those expectations that there has to be a certain way to do it. Show up, even if that means you're not going to finish today because you have a time crunch, even if that means you're not going to be able to do it beautifully because, I don't know, something came up, even if that means that I'm just going to have to do it halfway because my kids are pulling me. At least you made progress, and acknowledge the fact that you did that. And also, like I said, there's an under-level root work that's going on, and for you to show up and do a bad job, you still are growing your roots and developing the habit and creating the grooves in your brain for this to be something that feels effortless to you in the future. It doesn't matter how well you did it. And so that's one thing I've learned. Y'all, I hope that y'all don't come over here and feel like I'm doing Flylady perfectly. I am not. I drop the ball many days. Some days I do more than others. But I hope that I can just be realistic and just let you guys know that even with me showing up to Flylady and doing a crappy job over here trying to juggle my 4 kids and work and do this YouTube thing, even with me doing a crappy job, it's incredible to see the fruits of consistency and of being persistent showing up. Because one thing I'll tell you about myself is no matter how many times I do a horrible job, no matter how many times I get knocked off, I keep showing up, and that's the name of the game. And it's once you can show up, then you can begin to grow, then you can begin to prosper and to flourish. And so I just want to offer that to you guys today. If you're having a hard time sticking with your routines, if you're having a hard time, you feel like you're having a hard time making the system work for you, I just want you to acknowledge that even if you can't see the fruits of your work, it does not mean that you're not growing. You are growing, and you are creating the roots of your system, which is the habits and evolving and becoming the type of person who can show up, who is not held back by perfectionism, who is able to work with what you have and stop waiting for that perfect time. And it's once you can do that groundwork, oh baby, once those habits actually have a chance to kick in and this becomes automatic for you, all the stuff that you're looking for and all the results that you want are just gonna pour in. And it's just pretty cool to see. Like I said, it's just been a really tough season over here, and it's so cool to see that when it comes to the housekeeping, I have not added that to my list of problems, because now it's just my body has just taken over. She knows what to do and we gets it done. Not perfectly, but that's okay. I don't have to be perfect right now. I just want to be happy and I just want to be comfortable. So that's all that I have for you guys for today. Yeah. So I guess my call to action for you is to think of a habit. What habits do you want to commit to this week? Even if you have to start with one, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. So start with that one. Try to commit to showing up to it as often as you can. I was reading a book from James Clear, and he said that you don't have to be perfect when you're showing up and building your habits. Like I said, it's about putting the repetition in. And he said that the idea is to show up more often than you don't. If you can get 51% in terms of, if you can get yourself to show up 51% of the time, like that's it. Like you have done enough to build that habit and to prove to your brain that this is what I'm doing now, and this is the kind of person I want to be. So try to show up the majority of the time. And then once you can show up for the majority of the time, then you can always grow and increase as you show up. Like I said, this is not a band-aid. This is not a quick fix. We're trying to create the habits that will make the problems that you have in your environment disappear and create the kind of life that you want. So show up the majority of the time this week. Next week, increase it. Maybe the week after, add another small realistic habit that you can stick with, and let's do the groundwork so that in 30 days from now, 60 days from now, you can be experiencing the fruits of your persistence and your hard work. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys are having a beautiful and a blessed week, and I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.